Hey, this is Francesca Battistelli, and you're listening to Dispatch Radio.
Hey, we're back on this Friday afternoon, and of course, it is my weekly book review. But I got to tell you that this is not just a book review, because, the topic of human trafficking is something that's very, very high on my concern list. And I'm excited because not only one of our residents right here in Tampa, but also someone who is a part of our WTB and the Bill Bunkley Show family is my next guest. And of course, I'm talking about Brandon Jones, and he is the co-founder of Global Dispatch. Now, that's a Google News website based right here in Tampa. And he can be heard on media outlets discussing breaking news, Christian headlines, and religious persecution all over the globe. What he's done is he's written a novel that really helps tell a story, but in that story, it helps bring in this whole issue of human trafficking. And of course, the novel is called The Rise of the Templar. And I'm excited to dive into this because we haven't seen a Templar story in a while. And so the Templars were back sort of more, medieval, and now we're going to put this in with human trafficking. So I'm all excited to get to this. And so, Brandon Jones, good to have you with us.
Oh, Bill, it's such a blessing. Thank you for fitting me into your schedule.
Well, tell us a little bit. We got a situation here. We got a young lady by the name of Alex, and she's a teen prodigy. To sort of set this up for us, talk about what's happening. How does your novel open up, and get us a little bit of a taste of this?
Well, we find Alex, she's being trained by a very mysterious organization, and gradually through the books, we're going to learn a lot more about the ties to this group through history. Obviously, the Templar theme that resonates very strongly with a lot of folks. And then we realize that what she's being asked to do now is to take her first mission, if you will, and dive into the sex trafficking universe to try to acquire a flash drive, which is being used to track people. And by capturing this, they'll be able to help bring down the global market of human trafficking. And it really was a goal to try to bring a novel to people that don't know much about it, a lot of education, but also trying to make something digestible for young girls as well, to try to get some of the education in young. Now, you can't write a 200-page, 300-page book about the grueling details of human trafficking. We do it a lot through backstories and that kind of thing, but everything is based on real life. We mold over countless testimonies of victims that have been rescued all over the globe. We dive into Belgium, which is definitely one of the hot spots in the globe of people moving through there, and it's a fun adventure I hope people can enjoy.
Now, we want to give honor to whom honor is due, and especially because God worked through a very, very important person in your family. And, sometimes we adults who are engaged in these issues, we certainly we do our homework, we have our perspective, but sometimes it's the kids, and sometimes it's your own children. In their most innocent way can bring us to a point of view or realization. Tell us how your daughter actually played into this becoming to fruition.
Yeah, God truly blessed my family, and we had missionaries that we support through our church in Belgium, those Breaking Chains, and others that had come to us and spoken about some of the tragedies overseas. And she really had come to me about just that first seed, of the story. And she really was just, heartbroken that there's so many teen stories that are being done, but that are not appropriate for Christian girls, or they're moderately appropriately for Christian girls. The Hunger Games franchise, of course, is huge now, those kinds of things. And she thought of, a story idea with this teen heroine. It really kind of was birthed back then. That was a few years ago, and I really felt as though I was encouraging her to be a writer. She's very talented as a writer, and that would kind of grow legs. But in my own life, God took a hold of me and couldn't get this story out of my head, and just kind of started to grow from there. And my daughter Sierra she's an integral part in the development. We mold over pages together. We would constantly troubleshoot different story ideas. She would read my latest versions and drafts. She'd critique my work along the way. It was definitely a partnership, and something that I'm very proud that she could be a part of, and really just bless me, not only as a human, as a father, but as a Christian.
Well, let's get into the story a little bit more. And, of course, my guest this afternoon is Brandon Jones from right here in Tampa. And the book I'm recommending is The Rise of the Templar. And it is the story of a young lady who gets raised by a group called the Order. And then there is this mission to get involved with the aspects of the shadowy world of human trafficking. And a lot to be learned about this in a novel form, and just excited what Brandon has done here. Let's talk a little bit about this idea of human trafficking, because oddly enough, I think people are now realizing that it's modern day slavery. But just last night, I was looking at one of the latest documentaries, I think on National Geographic, and the entire worldwide network and the people that, particularly from the Philippines, Seoul, South Korea, you're talking about Belgium. Talk a little bit about the number of young girls and boys that are being brought into this country for no other reason than the sex trade.
Yeah, it's just a very shocking scenario. You're talking about 30 million people globally. 1 million are moving annually across international borders. So you have different hotspots. We touch on that a little bit with an Asian network, like you mentioned, the Philippines and Bangkok and that kind of thing. And then, of course, Albania is a huge area. That's where the book kind of starts with one of the characters, and she's being trafficked across the waters through Italy and then out through Western Europe, which, of course, is a hub through Belgium, where they have basically a red light district. I mean, it's technically kind of a legal free-for-all, and it really has become more of a tourist distraction, as disturbing as that is. And these poor girls are showcased in window fronts and prostituted out. They're kind of trapped. Their families are threatened. There's all sorts of scenarios and horror stories that go with this. And we try to do that through some of the different backstories of some of the different characters. And then we also have the story rooted very much in America. We have 2 or 3 different parts that are here. And I was very moved by the Ariel Castro story. He had kidnapped girls in Cleveland, Ohio. They were raped and trapped for over a decade, and it's in our backyard. We hear about it very briefly from time to time. We'll hear about it soon with the Super Bowl coming up, because that tends to be where a lot of prostitutes that are shipped in and trapped in situations. And we tried to make it more than just the stereotype that I think the movie Taken at least gave people a little bit, but try to go much further than that, because you've got people who are living a daily life. They're getting up, they're pretending to be Susie Homemaker, and yet at the same time she's sneaking out at light, pretending to have this kind of job when in fact she's being blackmailed, if you will, with photos. There's all sorts of stories and just horrors out there, and we wanted to try to bring that to light.
And the aspect where you talk about this blackmail, because it seems that, I want you to talk about 2 different types of young girls who are brought into this sex trafficking. Of course, we're talking to Brandon Jones, author of a new book, The Rise of the Templar. And I think there's 2 types of girls. There certainly is young girls who are tricked and are coerced and they're forced. But then in some of these third world type countries where it's a very, very poor countries, some of these girls are volunteering to get involved, volunteering to come, trying to make money they would never make. Talk about that, because it seems like a 2-sided challenge to try and deal with this.
And sure, and I'll add a third, and that is that there's sort of a promotion within that many of the brothels, if you will, are run by other women, and that's kind of a mind-blowing concept. But yes, you have women that are tricked. You have people that are trying to get passports. They're trying to apply for jobs or university opportunities, and they arrive in these scenarios, and then they realize they've been duped or misguided, and then they're basically just trapped, enslaved. They disappear. Families may be searching for them, maybe not. And you also kind of have that third world impoverished situation where sometimes they just don't escape. Even when they find out they have opportunities that they can leave, they won't, because they're making money that they may not be able to make home. Sometimes they're trapped, or they stay enslaved in these scenarios because they get a little bit of money, and that's being sent home to their families back home, and that's more than the families can make back home. So the dynamics of this go beyond just the stereotype of evil that Hollywood sometimes presents, the face of evil, and it definitely has a lot of cultural issues in some of these areas. We don't even get into the Islamic factor of this. Of course, that's where little boys are definitely a hot topic there, and it really is just shocking because you would think that we would be a lot more aware of this in America, but it is really kind of a behind the curtains kind of thing.
And I think we saw the images, or no, not images, but we certainly saw the aftermath in Nigeria this past weekend where a 10-year-old little girl, not being sex trafficked that we know of, but she was strapped with those explosives and went into a market and was remotely detonated. And I just say that to say, in many places of the world, children, youngsters, especially little girls, they really are not seen of having any value. And of course, we know that our Lord Jesus Christ has great value in each one of these kids as well as everyone. And of course, now I want to talk a little bit about, we get back to the book in 1 second. Of course, we're talking with Brandon Jones. The book I'm recommending this afternoon is The Rise of the Templar. The presentation I saw last night, which was one that I had not been so exposed to. In this situation, Brandon, you had girls in Seoul, South Korea, who were volunteering. And the way this particular sex trafficker operated, the girls would pay $5,000. Or they'd have a $5,000 debt to the sex trafficker. Then the trafficker would prep them for getting on a flight. Some of the times if the girls couldn't get a visa directly from, say, Korea into California or somewhere wherever the non-stops were coming, they were flying them into Hawaii. And then once they were in Hawaii, they could fly domestically without showing a visa. So they showed how they came in. They showed how they were coaching them, and they showed how customs on the border is really checking people out when they're coming in and seeing these young girls and questioning them. And then when they get through, if they get through customs and immigration, then there is a person that meets them, and then they're immediately taken to one of these brothels, and they live there 24/7. Whether it's run by a female or not, they have a house mom, and then they're kept captive. They don't leave. They don't go anywhere, and they begin working off their debt. And when you look at that, and you look at the amount of folks who've come here illegally and all this idea about the American dream, it just reminds us of in some instances, we're not going forward as a culture. We're really going backwards. And now with internet and air travel and everything else, I mean, this really is like putting a match on gasoline, Brand. It just erupts in this global, huge issue.
Well, it just truly broke my heart. I remember after reading the testimonies there's about 17 pages that we read from the Albanian rescue group, and I remember just praying to Jesus, just give me the words that you want me to say to help try to capture some sort of character out of this. How do I remotely put this on paper? And you've heard so many times with people who want to try to argue that we should decriminalize prostitution, that we should try to decriminalize gambling, different things like this, and they just want to look the other way, that this will be exploited from all over the globe. We no longer have these barriers up where people can't come to American soil and take advantage of these scenarios. And this is why it's still legal. You have these massage parlors and these networks of things where these girls are being moved around all over the United States to sporting events, different type of concerts. They're brought into these cities for these large gatherings, especially when international visitors are coming. So you got a group of, let's say, Saudi men that are coming to an event in the United States, and they will ship these prostitutes around the United States to be there to service these men. It's like I said, it's really just shocking that this underbelly is going on so quietly whenever America has, just this incredible network of press and news that just kind of looks the other way, other than like an expose like what you saw.
Now, get back to your book, because when we chronicle the adventure that Alex is on here, and of course she is raised by a group called the Order, and Mexico ties into all this. As this unfolds in some of these different areas, you actually incorporate some of the real life stories of some of these boys and girls into who this character interacts with as the book unfolds, correct?
Absolutely, and I'm very proud of one character we call Mama, who was really based on some girls who had gone through Bangkok. They were promised jobs. Of course, those were not real jobs, and she stayed within the system. She worked her way up to become, as you refer to as a house mom, but they run a brothel basically, and she looked for different opportunities. She was taken by one of the mafia leaders that was moving the girls to Western Europe to put her in charge of a new brothel. And it's very much rooted into real life. And we try to do that throughout the book. You mentioned the Nigeria situation. There's a mention of Boko Haram by design. I've been covering Boko Haram since 2010. My heart's just totally broken over the situation in Nigeria. There's a Muslim Moroccan group that's moving girls and drugs all the way through Amsterdam and South America, and they actually call themselves, in English it translates to the Turtles, and we actually use the Turtles in the book. And these are the kinds of things I try to bring to life. And there's other things that are more obvious: the NSA monitoring, a lot of tracking, like digital tracking, things like that are all based on real life, because I think it can give you a more grounded nature to this is a real life problem, and we need to be praying and looking for real life solutions.
And of course, we're talking on our Friday afternoon book review. We're talking with Brandon Jones from right here in Tampa, Florida. His book, The Rise of the Templar. And so now I'm going to finally get around to it, because I know I've been prepped a little bit that you were doing some research on the Shroud of Turin. And so you began really taking a look at some of this history, some of it factual, some of it, I'm sure, part of the myth and the lore, but nonetheless, it caught your imagination. So how in the world did you come to the point of getting them entwined in this story? And it's in a very special, positive way, right?
Well, I hope so. And I was very, very touched by the Shroud of Turin. There was some new research that's come out over the last couple of years that really starts to counter the carbon dating that had been done in the 70s, the disapproval of the Shroud by the critics, and we really kind of seen that kind of flipped on its head. And through the history of the Shroud, the Templars do come up more than one occasion, and of course everybody's heard of the Templars, even if they don't know too much, and Dan Brown's popularity has created this sort of false truth. And what I really wanted to run with here, and really...
Well, first of all, just tell us, who were the Templars, in case someone just, let's brush that off a little bit for you make your point here.
Okay, the Templars actually at some point got designated by the Catholic Church as sort of kind of being a military arm of the church, almost kind of an aggressive, forceful group, and they are sort of kind of taken as a lot of responsibility for different artifacts, different geography regions, different churches, those kinds of things. And of course, a lot of the conspiracy theories is there's much more to that. There's a lot of secret things they were hiding. There's a lot of covert operations that they were really behind. And we kind of hijacked that a little bit because I really was a fan of the principle of, who wins the war writes the history. So what?
That's right.
I look at this dark side of the Templars and thought, well, where's all the good guys in this? Where were the good guys that were like, listen, I'm not doing that because that's not in the name of Jesus. This wouldn't maintain the purity of his name, the deity of his name. So the order is sort of kind of a sister of the Templars, and we kind of get into a divide through history, some different key events, and one of them is around the Shroud, and the different characters that have survived to our day that are still struggling to maintain the purity and the deity of Jesus. And of course, she's an offspring of that and kind of represents a new beginning, possibly a way of organizing a group to kind of stand back up again for what's right.
And of course, when you write a book like this and you intertwine all of these characters in it, give us a little bit of an idea in terms of what you want your readers to come away with when they've finished the last page.
Well, the most important thing is I hope there is a sense of realism, that while there is a fantastical story here, and she's a very hopefully believable character, it's very obviously very much my daughter was an inspiration in that, but that you do realize there's some really real-life issues and scenarios that you may not be privy to. There's a lot of different technologies. There's a lot of different covert operations. There's a lot of dark and horrifying groups that are exploiting humans all over the world. But at the same time, I hope that you come away with a lot of hope. Alex is very blatant about her Christianity. She's not out there beating people over the head with a Bible, but she's praying all the time. She listens to Christian music a lot. There's lyrics in the book because that's the music that plays in her head. She organizes the world around her at times. She treats people very kindly, but at the same time, she's a teenager, and they kind of got a sharp wit about them. And it kind of makes for a fun ride at the same time. And I think at the end, you come out wanting more. I think you can come out with new characters that you actually can believe are real, and a scenario that you're like, listen, I want to go to battle for this. I got to get involved. And we end with a song. There's a song that plays. It's a Newsboys contemporary Christian song. It talks about, that one thing. Do one thing. And if every day everybody did just one thing, what a different world it would be for Christ. And,
of course, that's Brandon Jones, The Rise of the Templar. I got to ask you a question. In any way, did your daughter happen to model for the young lady on the cover of the book?
Yeah, ironically enough, we took the photo and it was sent to the graphic design artist, and the plan was it would be distorted and changed much more than the final product, but with the scheduling and all that, and he really made her look more gritty and angry, if you will, than my daughter's original pose, and we just kind of went with it. I think it really does capture, though, a lot of what inspired Alex into being. I mean, she's, her name is a spinoff of Alexander, which means a defender of man, and she really does kind of represent, hopefully, a rebirth for teen girls, adults. We had great feedback from adult men that are enjoying the story. I don't know if it's because it's got a little Born Identity sort of feel to it in some ways, but I think that my daughter, her heart and soul is there with me. I'm doing a lot of the writing. I'm doing a lot of the legwork, but she's so in tune with the Spirit, and the Spirit would guide us so many times. She would just correct little things like, this is how Alex would say this. This is how Alex would say that. And it was just really amazing to see her grow in that way.
And, of course, if someone wants to follow up with you, how can they follow up with you, and how to get a copy of your book?
Of course, it's on Amazon. You can type in The Rise of the Templar. You'll find it there. Obviously, the softcover copy and the Kindle versions. I'm at bjonesauthor.com, bjonesauthor.com. You can contact me there. You can order a copy. You can request an autographed copy. We donate an extra $5 to the Breaking Chains Ministry, which are saving girls in Belgium. And, you can email me through the Global Dispatch as well. That's our news website. Like I said, I cover a lot of these kind of topics from a news standpoint. I've talked to you on your show about some of those things, like we talk about Boko Haram and Christian persecution and all those kinds of things. And they can contact me through there as well.
Absolutely. Brandon, thank you so much for being with us, and we wish you very, very huge success with the book, huger success in getting the word out.
Thank you again for your time, Bill.
God bless you, my friend. All right, going to take a quick time out. When we come back, it's time for Sports with Paul Porter and Movie Guy with Ben Kaiser. Don't go away, because we'll be right back.